Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Junior. It's Rowan from Silver Tiger Media. How are you?
Hey, man. What's going on? What's happening?
Oh, not a great deal, except for talking to you. What a privilege. And sorry, I had to get Junior in there. Dave, thank you very much for your time today. It's a tremendous privilege to speak with you.
Cool, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. What a brilliant idea to embark on a spoken word tour. I personally have an inexhaustible list of experiences I'd like to ask you about, let alone the rest of your fans. What can we expect from the show?
Well, I'm going to start out with, I got a little setup that I'm going to do with it, some video setup. And then I want to just launch into it. I want to get into, my Life With Deth, the book becomes the template. And that book now is about a little over a year old. And it's interesting how you remember other stories. People bring up certain things to you. Of course, there have been some new stories in the meantime since the book was written.
Yeah, sure.
And I think, it's meant to be a fun night out, I mean, look, it's a rock and roll band, it's a heavy metal group. And I've gotten to live an amazingly great life and travel the planet all because, one day at 10 years old, 11 years old, I decided to pick up the bass,
Yeah.
So to me, a lot of it is just, it's having fun with it, and there's certainly some great stories. And I feel like, part of it's, I also want to, do a Q&A. I love Q&A stuff with this, whether it's a bass clinic or this kind of setting, because, fans ask things that I wouldn't normally think about, and then that inspires a whole new conversation, which I think is really cool.
Oh, magnificent indeed. And I'm sure there's enough there for a second, third, fourth, and fifth show, probably. Sorry, mate, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Without spoiling the show for anyone, I've always wanted to ask you about the 1988 tour of Ireland, a bulletproof bus, the carnage. How frightening was it?
For what? For Cryptic Writings?
For the Ireland tour of 1988.
88. That was for So Far, So Good, So What? Is that the one you're talking about?
Thank you.
Yeah. Look, so you've already inspired me. There's a good question I should probably answer. It's funny. We, as I've now divulged in my book, I obviously was not a very good sound and mind and health because of, a drug addiction that I had. And I remember, it was difficult because in those days, Australia has really become a different country to tour, and a lot of that is because of a lot of the big festivals now, we used to have to rob Peter to pay Paul. We'd go to Japan, make a bunch of money, we'd go to Australia and spend it all, And lots of times we had to really gauge what worked, and I forget the exact reason because, to be honest with you, I was kind of a mess back then in 1988. That was really when I was hitting my bottom as a heroin addict. So I wasn't. I can't honestly remember the exact reason, but I do remember we were in Japan and we made the decision to cancel the tour and go home, or go back to the United States, and then we carried on, I think, with the Iron Maiden tour and in the USA and stuff. So, but it was definitely disappointing because we have not been a band to cancel tours and cancel things, and usually when things are booked, we try our best to make them happen.
Sure. Yep.
So anyway, and part of that, quite honestly, for me to go to Australia, I haven't been down there now about 4, almost 5 years. So honestly, I'm really looking forward to going back. I mean, the Australians it's just such a great hang. It's such a cool vibe. It's a great country, and for me to start spoken word stuff down there with the Australians is a total treat for me.
Oh, fantastic. And look, we're very much keenly anticipating your visit towards the end of March. It'll be tremendous. I have to ask you, though, Dave, if I may, what's it really like to know that you have inspired so many countless artists and bands over the years?
It's funny because, people come up to us all the time and tell us that, and I get it, because it's funny, we just did this Metal Allegiance trip out on the Shiprock cruise, and part of that whole thing is that we are fans of all these different groups, AC/DC, Judas Priest, Van Halen, et cetera, and we played the Van Halen album top to bottom, and it's funny because the album just marked its, I think it's 40th anniversary, was it, 30th or 40th anniversary, I think 40th anniversary of when it was released. Was that right, 40th?
I think so, yes.
Something like that, some significant, number. Just like this last month, Eddie Van Halen just turned 60 this month. His son Wolfgang was actually on the boats. We had him come up and play with us. And
wow.
It was that moment where we all got to be fans ourselves, and I love that. It's so cool because I think when you lose, the thrill of being a fan of music, I think in a lot of ways it's easy to lose the passion, and growing up as a kid, I played in cover bands in Minnesota, and I was never a very good cover musician. And I would later find out it's because I was always a better, kind of more artistic, original musician.
Sure, yeah.
And then over the last, 7-8 years or so, I started participating in some kind of all-star cover band kind of things. And I've really come to appreciate it, probably because I'm a much better musician now. I've been playing professionally now for, 35 going on 40 years, 35 years, so I got a much different level of experience. So when I hear a song, I think of it from a professional point of view, not just that as a fan.
Absolutely.
Music, whether it's a Megadeth song or I'm just playing a cover tune, some Sabbath tune or something, it's nice to play songs you're a fan of, and it's even nicer to play. It's even cooler, I should say, to play. To write and record songs you're a fan of. You know what I mean? When you can write songs you go back and listen to and you're a fan of them yourself, you're like, wow, this is, what a cool experience. And I think for me, that's the experience that I've gotten to have. Yeah, we've gotten to inspire a lot of others, but it's nice to go back and still be a fan of your own work too.
Absolutely. I can attest to that, having gotten up this morning to Symphony of Destruction and Sweating Bullets. I had to play Countdown to Extinction. Look, so after Megadeth, F5, Soulfly, Avian, Temple of Brutality, Killing Machine, Ministry, it goes on and on and on, just to name a few projects. Would it be fair to say that your brilliant time with Megadeth in the early days was just the beginning for you?
It really was, and I can definitely consider Megadeth my home, and I consider it my band as well, and I say that out of, because I'm proud of it, I'm proud of our work we've done together, and proud of the brotherhood and everything that Megadeth is and, has become. But yeah, there was a season there where, I was away from the group and I guess probably by my discography, it shows that I'm a musician and I'm a fan of music and I'm a fan of being in a band and I think that discography just shows, if nothing else, how much my passion is for playing, a lot of people would call me all the time and ask me to get involved in things, and I would usually say yes, and not because I was thinking like this is a strategic career move, but rather, do I like the songs? When I got the Killing Machine demos, I'm like, God, this is great, man. This is really cool. And then when I flew down to Florida to record the Temple of Brutality record, I was like, God, this is so much fun, man. Being in a room with 3 other complete strangers, all forming a friendship around the greatness of the music, and that, I tell you what, that put so much wind in my sails, man. Just, to realize it's like, this is my purpose on the planet is just, taking a chance, being on the edge, living out in the realm of the unknown, because that's what music is. Music is spirit, you know. It manifests itself through notes and recordings and stuff like that. But it's very, or origins are just two souls, and then three souls, and then four or five, however many people are in that band, just vibing and inspiring each other. And there is just no better feeling in my life than to be in a room with people just inspiring each other to create. That's just such an amazing experience, and I'm just so happy I've gotten to have in my lifetime.
Absolutely. Did you feel more fulfilled as an artist on your return back to Megadeth in 2010?
Absolutely, yeah, without a doubt. I realized when I came back back today, I'll never forget it, February 5th, 2010, when I drove over to California with a couple of basses in my guitar, in my car to go jam with Dave, Sean, and Chris. And I just remember a level of kind of musical confidence that I had, and an ability to just sort of kind of see right to the sweet spot of the music, and it just flowed effortlessly for all of us in the room, and it was and because I had so many experiences away from the group, it definitely made me a much better musician, a much better human being when I came back to Megadeth, and I'd like to think that that's been a very positive thing I've been able to bring to the group now.
Oh, wonderful. Look, I mean, my next question, with the greatest of respect to you, Dave, obviously the early 2000s was a difficult time for what I like to call the Megadaves. Do you believe that your faith that you both share helped bring peace between you?
Sure, without a doubt. I mean, it's, I think, look, Dave and I always had a saying, if both of us agree on everything, then one of us is unnecessary. And
beautiful turn of phrase.
And I think, and that goes for four people in the band too. If everybody's just going to agree on everything, not that everything has to have tension to it, but you're going to naturally challenge each other. And there's a fine line between challenging each other and pushing someone's buttons, and that's, I think, probably the fine line that anybody who's in a band is well aware of that, and also being respectful of somebody trying to create something. And I think that's always been, that's always been understood in Megadeth, Yeah, I mean, listen, the late 90s, the early 2000s, it was rough for heavy metal, period. I mean, we could feel the tides and the undertow of the music business and managers and record companies, radio and all this stuff just pushing and pulling and it's I mean, look, the group disbanded in 2002. It's almost it's like we just stopped, parked the car in the garage and closed the door and said, that's it for now. And then, of course, when it reformed in 2004, Dave and I were, we were just on different, artistic paths at that point. And it's, we're really lucky, I think, that we were able to come back together in 2010 and not rush it, not make it hurried. It wasn't desperate. It was really just two brothers wanting to get back together and jam again for the love of the music, for the fun of the fans, and just for all the right reasons, and it made me really appreciate being in a band for all the right reasons.
Absolutely. Again, with all the respect I can muster, Dave, I can't help but draw similarities between your own life and that of Martin Luther's, as strange as that may sound. The journey through metal must have been so draining on your faith throughout the years. Yeah, I mean, keeping a band together is really a difficult thing, and of course, as you grow older, you have a family, you grow up, man. You're supposed to grow up, and I think those who don't grow up and just insist on being like this perpetual teenager, a lot of them overdose, they die, they end up broke, destitute. You have to mature on the outside, on the inside, the same way your body matures on the outside, and we're not 21 anymore, you know what I mean? And it's and along with that, it's you come to
you come to kind of respect your own maturity a little bit too, you know. But it's sometimes, you know, Dave and I will look at a decision that needs to be made, and it's like, well, we've been here before. You know, what are we going to do now? And I think, and that's a cool place to be, because, you know, the first time you go through some of this stuff, everything's like, oh my God, if we don't make the right decision, it's going to be the end. And you feel this immense pressure. And I think now, as we make decisions, it's sort of like, well, you know, look, what's the worst that's going to happen? You know?
Yeah, indeed.
You know what I mean? And I think, and it takes a lot of pressure off, you know. And it's like, at the end of the day, you know, Megadeth is bigger than any one of us, and it's bigger than all four of us. I mean, it's, you know, Megadeth is bigger than any, it's kind of bigger than human comprehension, to be honest with you, you know. And to me, quite honestly, and I talked about this in my book, and, you know, maybe something I'll touch on in my spoken word thing, it's like, there's sort of a divine origin to Megadeth. I mean, what is the chance that me, a 16-year-old kid in my dad's farm shed with my band, get this gut instinct at age 16 to say, go to California. And I followed that path for 2 years, and 5 days after I graduated high school, I'm in my van driving to California. I get there, moving in an apartment underneath a guy who was, you know, a songwriter and one of the key guys of, you know, what would become one of the biggest metal bands ever, Metallica, and the two of us together formed one of the other big four bands, you know, one of the other biggest groups ever to come out of, heavy metal groups to come out of, you know, North America, Megadeth. You know, I mean, it's like,
absolutely.
It's like, I look at that and I go, this didn't happen by mistake, you know.
Yeah.
And I think what it taught me is, you know what, follow your gut, follow your instinct. You know, for me, mine happened to be being a bass player, falling in love with heavy metal. And you know, believe me, I've lived out of my comfort zone most of my life. Most of my life has not been about just sitting in the calm of the storm. It's about being out where the violent winds blow and the frickin' waves are high and the tide is rough, man. But I found that that's where, you know, the best creative energy comes, the best, you know, certainly the most successes I've had are out there. But at the end of the day, the most rewarding life I've had has been from going, well, don't get too comfortable. You know what I mean? Like, get ready to jump back into the storm again, you know. So that's probably overall, that is the story of my life with Death.
Oh, fantastic. And we can't wait to hear more. We've got 5 shows coming up here in Australia through Metropolis Touring, which will be just a tremendous experience for those of us lucky enough to secure tickets. It's such a privilege to speak to you, Dave, and I can't thank you enough for your time today. We'll look forward to your spoken word tour at the end of March. And, my friend, safe travelling.
See you next month.
Excellent. We'll look forward to it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.